you're listening to We Don't Watch Movies with me, Monze.
And me, Corinne.
Woo! Hello everyone. So this week we are talking about the movie American Fiction.
Yes.
Okay.
I was wondering if you were going to
Correct.
get the right movie. We are not talking about Saving Private Ryan. We are talking about American Fiction.
American Fiction. So that's fun. That's exciting. New recently released movie. I don't know when it came out, but it came out fairly recently.
Yeah.
2023.
Yeah.
It came out on my cousin's birthday in 2023.
Oh.
But I'm not going to tell you when.
Okay.
You would just have to Google it. Everyone, you would just have to Google it, and then you'll know my cousin's birthday.
Yeah, you have like a million cousins, so this is
I have a million
close
cousins,
to identify.
so it doesn't. It really doesn't help. All right, so yes, American Fiction. Corinne.
Yeah.
Why have you not seen American Fiction?
All right. So there is the usual I didn't know / I forgot. But I will also say I don't think this movie was marketed at all.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
I don't think it was marketed well.
Mm-hmm.
It probably wasn't marketed at all either, but like I remember seeing or hearing something about it.
Mm-hmm.
I think the poster. I'd seen the poster.
I think I saw one teaser trailer.
Oh, I haven't even seen like a trailer.
But I've never seen a poster. So.
So.
And I heard someone talking about it, I think.
I've heard people talking about the movie, yes, more than I've seen it being marketed.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. So that's why I haven't seen it, because the marketing was terrible, and I also forgot that it existed. So why haven't you seen it?
I probably for the same reasons. If it wasn't marketed towards you, it probably wasn't marketed towards me. I think I saw a poster or something about it, and it looked interesting, and I Googled what it was about, and I thought, oh, that's very interesting. Mm-hmm. But then it did come out in December, and I got other things going on in December.
You got a lot of things going on in December.
I have a million things going on in December. Oh, I just hit my mic. So it just never happened. And I remember my coworker, she was talking about it, my colleague at the time. And she said it was very good. And I just never got around to it. I think part of it, because I know a little bit about what it's about, that I also just... I was afraid that I was going to be embarrassed when I watched it. And I don't like that
the secondhand embarrassment, yeah.
The secondhand embarrassment. Because we can move on to the next bit, which is what is this movie about. I know that he is like this intellectual black man. He's a writer, and I think his books have been unsuccessful, but I think he writes a book pretending to be like he grew up from the streets or something, and that becomes a bestseller.
Okay. Yeah.
So he starts to pretend to be that version of that guy. So I was like, that is like to me that's so interesting. Mm-hmm. Especially when you think about like, of course, especially like white people and like white liberals who are like, oh, you like overcame all this to become this intellectual, instead of being like, no, I just was afforded the exact same opportunities you were, and therefore I am at the exact same spot, right? But it's like, but I was like, I don't want to see that as well. Like I was like, you know?
Yeah.
So that's another reason I haven't like seen it.
Yeah. Okay.
What do you think it's about?
All right.
Maybe in more detail than me.
Yeah, let's think about the plot. Because thank you for reminding me. Because I knew he was pretending to be something he wasn't, but I couldn't remember if it was like he was pretending he was a different race or something else. So now I know it's class related. I think it kind of feels straightforward. I'm very curious to see if there's a twist somewhere in the story. Okay. Because the way the premise lays itself out suggests that the story is exactly how you said. Like, he's a writer, he's writing these high academic, like highbrow novels, no one's reading them. And then he decides to write like a I'm from the hood story. And suddenly they're super popular because that's the narrative everyone loves and expects, right, from someone like him. And shenanigans ensue. So probably, I bet like the first time he kind of thinks about coming clean with like, well, actually no, but because but then something makes him stick with the lie, right? And he continues to stick with the lie, and I bet he gets invited to things with people who actually have that experience, and he is trying to figure out how to fit in and pass in that. Maybe he has a friend who has that similar experience, so he goes to that friend like, help me out, how do I act hard, or like I grew up or rough or something. you know
How do I act hard?
And does that, and like initially it's awkward, and they think he's kind of weird, but then like he keeps doing it and they're like, oh, okay, but then it maybe starts to skew into caricature, I'm not sure, and then but he still hangs out with like his highbrow academic friends, so there's a bit of like that dual life montage happening. Hello. I wonder if maybe there's a journalist who's trying to like get some dirt on him and is like, wait a minute, I know this guy, I've heard of this guy, wasn't he this and this or something? But then maybe, so he has like that external pressure, but then maybe the actual come to Jesus moment for him where he's like, I gotta like fix this, is maybe he gets invited to like a school in like a rough part of town, and they ask him like can you give like a motivational speech on like how you rose up and got out of the hood and got out of, and succeeded and like give back to your community sort of thing. So he does it, but then when he looks out and looks at the kids, he has like this moment of like, I didn't go through this. I don't know what you're going through. This isn't right, and then either confesses later or something, and then writes like a blog post about everything, and then initially he gets some like, oh, what, but then he goes into the social commentary of it, and then he continues to like he becomes even more well known now because now he's admitted it, but also spoken to the double standard, and again the like expected narrative, the one story idea that people expect from different groups, and then it has a happy ending. So that's what I think. That's how I think the story is gonna fall out, just based on similar premises. So, but we'll see. I'm curious to see where the twists are.
Okay.
Yeah. But I feel pretty good about that synopsis.
Okay. I found a trailer. I'm gonna send it to you.
Okay.
Look. What really struck me was that too few books were about my people. Where are our stories? Where's our representation?
Would you give us the pleasure of reading an excerpt?
Yo, Sharonda, girl, you be pregnant again? If I is, Ray Ray's gonna be a real father this time around.
Oh my god.
No.
Oh my god. I love you, Ray.
Monk, your books are good, but they're not popular. Editors,
Oh, we called it.
They have a black book. I'm black, and it's my book.
You know what I mean.
Look at what they publish. Look at what they expect us to write.
We live in the ghetto. That's the name of the title of the book.
My pathology.
Oh no, my pathology.
Standing outside in the night.
Deadbeat dads, rappers, crack. You said you wanted black stuff. That's black, right?
I see what you're doing.
That's black, right?
We believe Mr. Lee has written a bestseller.
It's a joke.
The most lucrative
Oh,
joke
his
you've
pen
ever
name.
told.
Now, is Stagg a pseudonym?
Yeah.
Mr. Lee can't use his real name.
Is this based on your actual life?
Yeah, you think some bitch-ass college boy can come up with that shit?
No, I don't.
Oh my god!
Was it murder? You said that, not me.
They ran 3
The way he's sitting, oh my
They're
god.
offering $4 million for movie rights.
Movie rights.
The richer I get.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
You haven't done anything. It's not like they can arrest you.
Wish I could get
Of
back to
course.
selling books.
Is it bad to cater to people's taste?
People want to love you, Monk. You should let them love all of you. There's already so much buzz because of the movie deal.
Michael B. Jordan.
Oh, it's that guy.
I want to put him on the cover.
He's in
and
How to
one
Get
of
Away with
those,
Murder.
The scarves, I guess you would call them, tied around his head.
A do-rag?
A do-rag?
Do-rag and a
He called it a scarf.
Something called the fire department.
No.
Oh my god.
We're thinking we can get it out in time for Juneteenth.
Oh god. This Juneteenth, this December. Oh my god.
I kind of want to watch this on the plane next week if they have it. I was already thinking, I was like, this would be a perfect plane movie, yeah. All right. Do you want? I don't want to really amend too much. Although
I think we nailed it.
Yeah.
I think we nailed it.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get into it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thelonious Monk Ellison.
I love that's his name.
Thelonious.
Oh my god.
Is a well-read African-American upper-class writer and professor in Los Angeles. Oh, it takes place in LA. I thought it was New York for some reason. While his novels receive academic praise, they sell poorly, and publishers reject his latest manuscript for not being, quote, black enough.
Ugh.
His university places him on temporary leave due to his brashness with students over racial issues, and suggests he attend a literary seminar and spend time with family in his hometown of Boston. Oh, that's why it had East Coast vibes. Okay. At the seminar, his panel is poorly attended, in contrast to a packed room for an interview with Santara Golden, whose best-selling novel...
Santara Golden. His name! Okay.
Whose best-selling novel, Weez Lives in the Ghetto, panders to black stereotypes.
Weez live in the ghetto.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
In Boston, Monk has dinner with his mother Agnes, who has Alzheimer's disease, and sister Lisa, a physician. Later, while having drinks with Monk, Lisa suffers a fatal heart attack. Oh my god.
The sister?
Yeah. Oh, that's awful. Their estranged brother Cliff, a plastic surgeon, attends Lisa's funeral. They all have like really, really good jobs.
Yeah, well, they said here they're upper class,
Yeah.
so.
Cliff is divorced after his wife caught him having sex with a man. He now engages in frequent drug use and casual sex. I see. Monk meets and starts dating Coraline, a lawyer living across the street from his mother's beach house. Frustrated by Santara's success and the costs of care for his mother, Monk writes My Pathology, a satirical novel mocking the literary stereotypes expected from black writers. So it's satire. Melodramatic plots.
Oh, I know. And everyone thinks it's not satirical. See, I hate this. I knew this was gonna happen. Okay.
So it has melodramatic plots, deadbeat dads, gang violence, and drugs. After submitting it to his publishers out of contempt, he is shocked to be offered a $750,000 advance. That's enormous.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot for an advance. And his agent Arthur convinces him to adopt the persona of convict on the run, Stag R. Lee. Stagger Lee? Okay. Oh, so Stag R. Lee has a blue link. Is a popular American folk song about the murder of Billy Lyons by Stag Lee Shelton. Oh. So this is a reference. Stagger Lee, the historical Stagger Lee was Lee Shelton, an African-American pimp living in St. Louis, Missouri in the late 19th century. Oh.
Interesting. Okay.
And then he murdered somebody. Oh. For a hat.
It was the 19th century.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. So the name is a reference to something, yeah. Pathology also has... Oh, it just leads to pathology. Okay. All right.
Because it's a quote-unquote African-American vernacular.
Yeah. As Stag, Monk is offered a movie deal from a producer, Wiley. In response... Or Willie. I don't know. Pronounce it Wiley because there's an E.
He's a Wiley.
Okay. Anyways, in response to insulting comments by publishing executives, Monk tries to sabotage the deal by demanding the title be changed to Fuck.
Oh my god.
The executives reluctantly agree. Monk is...
Oh no.
Yeah, it's... Okay. Monk is invited to help judge the New England Book Association's Literary Award as part of a, quote, diversity push, and he reluctantly accepts. Yeah. A fellow judge is Sintara, and Monk learns that she shares many of his views. Agnes moves into an expensive assisted living facility, but adapts poorly. Cliff briefly returns to Boston, but leaves after Agnes makes a homophobic remark. Fuck becomes a bestseller.
Oh, they renamed the book?
Yeah, they renamed the book, I think, yeah.
To
Fuck, yeah.
With the movie? Okay.
Interesting, yeah. Coraline, Cliff, and the public remain unaware that Stagg is Monk, and the FBI contacts the publisher, believing Stagg is a fugitive, as he claimed in interviews. Okay. That was the part I could not predict.
That's what I figured, was that they were just believing off what he said.
Yeah. Monk's publisher submits Fuck for the literary award, forcing him to judge his own novel. Monk learns that Coraline enjoyed reading Fuck. They argue and break up. The panel's white judges rave over Fuck, though Sintara calls it pandering. Monk agrees, but later argues that Sintara's book is trauma porn and inauthentic to her African-American middle-class background. Sintara argues that she researched her book by interviewing voiceless people, was giving the market what it wants, that's in quotes, and that it is not her fault if white readers formed stereotypes from her book. Interesting. There's a lot there.
Yeah, there's
a lot there.
Yeah.
On family...
This movie's such a thinker. Okay.
I know. I'm like, we're probably not the best equipped for it, but there's a lot there. On family housekeeper Lorraine's wedding day, Monk finds Cliff living in Agnes's beach house with 2 other men, but Lorraine is happy to have him attend the wedding. Oh, this is the housekeeper, Lorraine. Okay. At the reception, Monk and Cliff discuss the impact of their father's suicide. Oh, and Cliff encourages Monk to let people love all of him.
Oh, so that was
that's Sterling K. Brown. Okay. At the awards ceremony, Fuck is announced as the winner. Monk goes on stage and says he has a confession to make. Here it is. Okay. The film cuts to black, and the events shown are revealed to have been Monk's screenplay based on his experiences, written for Wiley's production company as an alternative to the Fuck film adaptation.
Oh, so then it's saying that the movie we watched is the movie that he wrote instead of... Oh, that is so interesting!
Oh, I like this. I like when the media plays with its format like that. I love when that happens.
Wow, interesting.
Okay. This is so many spoilers that are like...
There's so much going on.
I know. I want to watch this movie now. I want to see the tells. Okay. Monk has not revealed his identity to the public and is still separated from Coraline. Wiley likes the screenplay but asks Monk to change the ambiguous ending. Okay, so that's supposed to be where the ending is the confession. All right. Monk proposes an ending with him running away from the ceremony to apologize to Coraline.
Yeah.
But Wiley
Wiley
says it feels too much like a romantic comedy. Monk then suggests one where police, believing Monk to be a wanted criminal holding a gun, fatally shoot him at the ceremony.
Oh my god.
Oh, I hate that. Okay, so that must have been that scene we see in the trailer. Ugh. Much to Monk's dismay, Wiley, who is also filming a blaxploitation film called Plantation Annihilation, loves it. And the film moves into production. Okay. Monk drives away with Cliff after he and one of Wiley's actors, playing a slave, acknowledge each other. I see. So the producer didn't want the happy ending. He wanted he gets killed ending. Yeah. And that is the movie. Interesting. This is based on a book called Erasure by Percival Everett. Okay. The novel reacts against the dominant strains of discussion related to the publication and criticism of African American literature. So it's basically,
Georgie drooled all over me.
it's basically the movie, like just kind of breezing over it. That's what the book is about. So it is based on a book.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting. I want to read this book too then. Huh. Well, initial thoughts. There's a lot here.
Sorry, I'm trying to.
I know
cater
George
to my
is
audience.
being both very polite and also very not polite.
I know. It's fun. Okay. I'm glad I know what happens in the movie.
Yes.
Because I think I would have been like, oh no, too many times. But now that I know what to expect, the oh no's are internal instead of external.
Yeah.
Um.
It feels like there's less embarrassment here because he's almost like trying to tank it, but it keeps being successful despite his attempts. Yeah, which is like, I also wasn't foreseeing that, obviously, so I like that that's the angle they're going with.
It's so fascinating. It's like, because I mean, it's right, like, it's so right that there's this idea of there is one experience that that Black people, that whatever, like all minorities share, right? And it's 100% untrue. But if you want to try to fit into that, like if you want to be successful in that kind of way, sometimes you have to force that narrative, or that narrative is forced onto yourself.
Yeah.
Right? So that is fascinating. I mean, this is definitely, right, like a satire. It's commenting on this experience that many minorities, and especially African Americans, have been through. So yeah, it's such a smart movie. It's
really smart.
I'm so mad at how smart this movie is, and I'm really mad at myself that I haven't seen it. 'Cause like, even now, but we're reading Letter to My Son.
Right, you were telling me about that.
Yes, by Ta-Nehisi Coates. And like the part that we were reading this week was this part where he's talking, because it's a letter to his son, right? So he's talking to his son about how like just like this is the week that like Michael Brown's killers went free, and like he's listing all of these people, and it's also thinking like Ta-Nehisi Coates is a Black intellectual, and he's talking about all these things like in an intellectual manner, right? And for like the students, it's like very hard to like, how do we get in there,
right?
And he's talking about things like the American dream and how the dream is built on the backs of African Americans, right? And so it's sort of like his viewpoint is so very different. I think because I don't think he, I don't know if he immigrated or his parents immigrated, but I don't think he was like one of the. It's
like, not like a historic. Yeah.
So I don't know too much about him. I haven't done that much research, but I'm just assuming. So that to me is like, there's also this difference, right? And when you think about like African Americans today who are like, I don't know anything about my history and culture, but this is, what I'm experiencing. So the culture of America is my history. Yeah. Whereas someone who comes and is like forced to adopt that, even though it may not necessarily be their experience or their ancestors' experience. But again, I'm also not quite sure, so I can do some research, and we have to edit this out. That's fine too. But yeah, I don't know. So it's interesting as well. Like he's very wealthy. He comes from like this upper class who is trying to take on this persona that is so disconnected from who he is and even his family experiences, right? Like his brother is involved in maybe the drugs or like the criminal element, but it's still just like it's still far removed from like being, on the streets of like the worst neighborhoods. Yeah. So I mean, he's in his deceased mom's boathouse with his two lovers, right? Like it's so very different than, I don't know, being homeless or, you know, having, or I don't know, living in a crack house or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's so very different.
I mean, it's like cocaine versus crack, right? It's
yeah.
like that.
The difference is who's using it.
Exactly.
Right? So yeah, I've just got so much in my mind that's just like my engine is revving. And it, like, even right, like, I'm Mexican, and even when I think about, like, my stories, sometimes there is a feeling that, like, I'm not catering to a voice in my community, but it's like, that's not my experience, so I shouldn't be the one to have to tell that story. Right? Like, I don't know what it's like to be in El Barrio, right? Because I grew up in a friggin' white suburb, right? Like, so my experience is very different. And so sometimes there feels like a need to be able to write from that place, or to say I've experienced this in some way, because then it gives you, you know,
credibility,
some kind of authority, credibility, right? When it's like, no, actually everyone's experiences is valid, right? Which is why, like, fucking white people can write about anything and it doesn't matter, but if it's a person of color, you know, it's like, why do you think that you can say this, right? But it's also like, oh, okay, but this person, you know, can write about whoever they want and it's not called into question.
No, it was, there's so many good points here. What the last thing that you just said reminds me of something Kathy Park Hong wrote in Minor Feelings, which is just a book on just different essays about her relationship to her identity as a Korean American woman. And there's a bit in there, because she's a writer, where that kind of awkward feeling of, like, I want to write about my culture, but how do I write about it? Because everyone expects, like, the immigrant story, right? Or is my story not Asian enough? If I don't write about Asian things, am I Asian enough of a writer? And if I don't write about the Asian experience, am I, like, Asian enough? And just that kind of, like, insecurity about the story. And reading that bit in the essay made me feel better, too. Because I've had that thought, too, right? There's the added thing of, like, well, I'm only half Korean, so how much Korean stuff could I even write about? And that I did not grow up in Los Angeles or New York City or in a Chinatown or Koreatown or any predominantly Asian heavy area, right? Which is, at least back when we were kids, that was the overarching stereotype. I don't want to say stereotype, but, like, that was the story, right? Maybe occasionally be like, we're the only Asian family in town, right? But then often those Asian families were Chinese. So again, it's kind of like, this still doesn't feel like exactly for me. And then it's, well, is my story even worth telling? Because we're half Asian and we've lived in different spots, but only one of my parents is an immigrant, right? And so I don't have the full, quote unquote, immigrant experience. So, and it goes back to, I forgot who said it, but there's a great TEDx talk. Someone talks about, like, the one story, like the one story, which I think actually we watched this video not for my grad school, but for, like, DEI stuff for work at, like, my last place. And it was, I think she's Nigerian. She's from, like, Africa. Like, she's a recent immigrant. She's in the United States for, you know. And the girl was asking her, like, oh, do you live in, like, mud huts or stuff like that or whatever? And the woman was like, what are you talking about? Because she came from, like, a good background, or I should say a wealthy background. And it's, again, it's that one story that people put us into. And I think part of it is the racist society that is the United States. I think part of it is the inclination for most humans to categorize things, which is not the reason why we're racist, but it certainly adds fuel to the fire, right? And then there's also capitalism. What's going to sell? You know, people, like, white guilt wants to read about slavery stories. They want to read trauma porn about different races. They want to read immigrant stories. They want to, because those stories, especially the immigrant stories, like especially the Asian immigrant ones, they always end on like a note of triumph of like, well, the American dream is still alive even though we are struggling so much. They usually end that way, right? Which adds to the myth and the mythology of the American dream, right? It's like when I went to Ellis Island and they were showing like, oh yeah, here's all the horrible, hard things that the immigrants had to go through, but isn't this what makes the country so great? And it's like, they literally did not have to go through all of this. You forced them to go through all of this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like yes, the resilience of the human spirit, but like, you forced this. And this also reminds me of that book I just finished reading, Interior Chinatown, which I was telling you about before, on like the roles that we're expected to play. Like, that one is pretty similar to this in a way. Like, he's not writing a book, but it's about acting, and it is still about Hollywood and the roles you're playing and the story that is expected. And the message of that book was like, be more than what the white people or the people in charge are saying you can be, right? If they're saying the only roles we're hiring for is Kung Fu guy, don't just aim for Kung Fu guy. Don't let that standard define you. Reach for more. Be more than that. Don't measure yourself up to that, because you're going to be chasing a status that you have no agency over. You're waiting for someone to give that to you, right? And that someone is usually like white person or Hollywood or whatever, which anyways. But, and then the way that the formatting happened with that is also similar to this. But no, there's a lot in there. And I do like also that this touches on like the black upper class that the United States has, because that is definitely like a thing that I don't know how many people are aware of. I wasn't as aware of it, I will say. Like, one of my professors in grad school talked about like, oh yeah, my family, like, we've been part of the black upper class, like the African American upper class, for like a long time, and was talking about like how their experience was different than many other people's experience, because, you know, they were always well educated. Their parents always stressed education. Their parents were always educated. Their grandparents were always educated. It's like everyone was consistently educated, right? And taught and was part of academia, and that's like their whole history. And there's groups of people like that who've always had wealth, who are black, but that's not like the stereotype or the average story, maybe we could say. But I don't think that means those stories can't be told. But then I also think about when Crazy Rich Asians came out, and that's also a story that is very atypical of Asian Americans, right?
Yeah.
Especially like the browner of an Asian you are, the more south you are in the continent, that tends to not be the case for you. But this was like this indulgent, it was wealthy, et cetera, et cetera. And a lot of people did criticize it for like, this doesn't represent my experience. And it's like, I understand that. But at the same time, I think it's important to have lots of varied stories, which is the tough thing, right? With when you're fighting for representation, it feels like every single story matters. But you also can't have like one story can't represent everybody. And the best thing about representation is not to be like whiteness as the standard, but like, as you said, white people can write about anything. They can write about any class, any whatever, any kind of story. And no one's like, this doesn't represent the white experience. It's like, no, it's anything, right? People understand like, this is a specific experience among white people, and there's also universality, right? Because in the specificity, there is the universal, right? We need to get to that level for like all everyone else,
and we're not even close to being there.
Yeah. So then when we get a story that doesn't like 100% cater to groups of people within that group, then you get criticism and people are unhappy, and it's like, on one hand I get it, but we need varied stories. But I do think the issue comes when the same type of story keeps being made, right?
But I mean, it also, I think, comes down to who are the people who are allowing us to tell those stories.
Yes.
Right? Because I think that's what this is also getting at, right? Like, he has a very specific story or experience, but the people in charge are still, like, the white people who are deciding what we consume, right? So I think the same thing there, where it's like, okay, maybe we are writing these super amazing stories or creating these ideas that are talking about different experiences. But again, if they don't let you through the door, right, like there's no way for anyone else to experience another type of experience, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. And then you get that age-old question of, like, do you stick to what you want to write and not get success? Or do you cater to what's successful with the hopes of eventually writing, like, gaining enough clout to where you can publish what you want to write eventually, right?
Yeah.
So, or, like, sneak it in.
Yeah. Correction. So I was wrong. I think it was just his name, which is, again, like, an issue, right? Because his name is Ta-Nehisi. I assume, but he's even his parents, his like father was a Vietnam War veteran. So like that, even we can even speak to how that's like, right, like people see like a different name or whatever and they assume you're from some place specific, right? So my bad.
Yeah. A correction mid-show. Yeah. No, it's very interesting.
There's so many layers here.
I know. I mean, even then too, like he's upper class, but still can't afford his mom's treatment. You know, and so that kind of speaks to like, is it a commentary on how prohibitively expensive memory care is, period, or is it more like even though he is upper class, he is African American upper class, so is that not at like the same level of wealth and access as like white upper class, right?
But you also mentioned he was on leave, so I wonder if because he's on leave he can't afford it.
Maybe, yeah.
I don't know if he's getting paid. I don't know if it's paid leave. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just remember he said that.
Yeah. No, it's interesting.
It's interesting.
And again, I like that he keeps kind of trying to sabotage.
Yeah.
Any, like, he's so surprised it's popular, and it doesn't seem like he is embracing it necessarily. Because he's like, why is this? This is a joke. I'm offended this is popular.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's speaking to, like, the intellectual.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know, of, like, I know what's good because, you know, I am, like, as far intelligent, whatever. So I think even as a creative, like, if people like something you don't like, or you don't think is your best work, or whatever, it is a bit like, I don't know, like, the audience that you want to serve is, I don't know, not on your level in some type of way.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm trying to say, but that's what my mouth said, so.
Well, it's like a difference of taste, right? It's like when people are like, how come the drawing that I spent 5 seconds on that looks like trash has like 1 million notes on Tumblr, but then the thing that I spent like 5 months on has like 10 notes, right?
Yeah.
Which I think there is also something to be said about access and like accessibility in terms of the story. Like, academic language can be really dense and difficult to read, right?
Yes.
And there is a level of gatekeeping involved, even if it's not active, where it's like, to understand what this person is saying, you have to come at it with an experience of reading at this level or at a comparable level of what is critical thinking, right? Comprehension, of even wanting to read it comes from a background of you have interests in these things, and those interests are usually fostered within like certain educational circles, right? And like who you're around and who's talking to you and et cetera and blah, 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 right? So there's like a lot of hidden staircases to that versus the freaking like, oh, We's in the ghetto thing or whatever, which is probably written with simpler prose, simpler writing, and even though it feels stereotypical or inauthentic to the author's own experiences, there's people out there that do have those experiences or who can relate to those experiences, so that's what they're reading. And it's also just easier to read. So I'm curious if they get into that as well, right? Because that's also the thing, right? It's like, oh, I want to make this like highbrow, incomprehensible thing, and like if you know, you know, if you get it, you get it. And it's like, okay, but then who is your audience? Are you only trying to get the upper echelon, or are you trying, which might have like minor success, even though the content might be like the most mind-blowing thing ever if you can understand it? Or are you trying to get the populace, right? Are you trying to get the popular opinion and audience, which might get you more financial success because more people want to buy and read it because it's easier to read. So there's also that, which I'm not sure how much they get into it in this movie, but that's definitely like, especially with comics and pedagogy and things like that in grad school. Well, like, because we had to read some really like dense stuff on like pedagogy, and they're talking about like, oh, we're trying to like dismantle the hierarchy of pedagogy and stuff and get rid of like the hierarchy of the teacher-student stuff and all this thing, and have like a more Marxist approach to the classroom and all this stuff, because then if we liberate the classroom, we liberate the people. And it's like, okay, I understand, but this is written so densely that ironically it's difficult for me to understand, and you're already creating like this is not accessible to people because it's difficult to understand, right? So you're ironically continuing that hierarchy of like intellectual versus, I don't want to say unintellectual, but like you know what I mean. Yeah. The liberal elite versus the general populace. I'm curious on opinions from people who are Black Americans, because obviously there's only so much we can get into since we are not Black, but there's still a lot, again, of comparable stuff just with regards to the expected story, the success of it, right? Who tells what story, the validity of our identity as a minority or as a specific minority in the United States, right? And what's expected from you if you are part of that minority. Which is a constant thing. It's not even just in like it's not even just in something like this where it's like, what story am I literally telling? It's like every day, like I'm watching Love is Blind, and there is the new season. This is relevant, I promise. And is it? I promise it's relevant.
Is it relevant,
yes.
Corinne?
There is a half Asian contestant on there. And she makes it like she matches with someone. But when she's talking to the guy, and the guy is white, and he's asking her about her family, she tells him about her dad, and she says her dad's name, and she says, I'm not going to say my mom's name because it'll give you a hint to my ethnicity. And the guy was like, oh, I've only ever dated white people. I'm not sure, like, why you're, like, hiding this. Like, it was kind of weird. Like, he didn't have the best reaction, in my opinion. He was like, it just feels very, like, calculated, like, how you talk and blah, blah, blah. He's like, which I love, but also just feels cold. And she's like, what? You think I'm calculated? And, like, he's literally, like, a physicist, and she's, like, a chemist. Like, and they've nerded out on, like, science stuff. So I'm like, anyways. And someone in the subreddits was talking about, like, I don't think how he reacted was that bad. And I was like, I don't think, like, she doesn't want him to have a predisposed notion of her based on her ethnicity, because he's going to have certain expectations, right? Which is, like, similar to what this is, you know? If she says, oh, I'm half Asian, or my mom is from Hong Kong or whatever, then he's going to have expectations on how she looks, on how she is. Even though he's getting to know her, it's going to color everything else he learns about her because of that, you know? It's that whole white person question of, like, where are you from? Because they want to know where to put you in their mental category box, which I know it's not just white people that do that, but they are often the most common perpetrators of that. Where are you from? And they think it's harmless, but it's like, it's actually not harmless, because if you don't know, then you don't know, like, you only want to know because you want to know how to treat me. And it's the same thing with, like, gender, right, and non-binary, whatever. It's like they want to know so they know how to treat you because they have an expected role and story for you, right? And it's, do I fit in with this or do I play up to that, right? So, yeah, if this is on the plane, I'm going to try to watch it. So,
got my plane movie.
My plane
right
movies.
here.
I mean, all 11 to 13 hours.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So, is there anything else you want to add?
No. I'm tired. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
that's fine.
I don't know if you could see that
Yeah, you like blew in all your energy from the beginning, and then
I'm now at the sleepy portion of my day.
Yeah.
No, I don't have anything more to add. I made my correction, so apologies to Mr. Coates. I think it's super interesting. The thing about when I saw we were doing American fiction today, I was like, I don't remember us deciding on this, and I looked it up. So I think for me, the thing that I think is a weakness for the film, and maybe it's just because it wasn't marketed well, is that I don't remember what this movie is, even though people tell me the title of the movie.
yeah.
I don't know if it's because, like, there's American Beauty, right? There's a recent Pulp Fiction, whatever. Like, there's just things that, like, these words have been put together multiple times, and so to me the title's just not memorable.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I guess if I were to rate the movie, I'd give it 4 out of 5. I haven't seen it, but I like the themes. I like what it's playing with. I like the angle it's taken. So, that's what I have to say.
I see. Yeah. I think that's all valid. I was trying to find that one movie that I watched that was gay that I think also had American in the movie, but I can't find it.
I was trying to find that gay American movie, you know.
Yeah, that I watched over the summer, but I can't remember the title. Yeah. Ironically, it didn't seem to have, like, that big of a theater run. It had a limited theatrical release.
I think...
And then expanded. And then it was released on digital platforms. But it started in the film festival circuit.
Yeah.
Which is almost like... Again, it's that commentary on access. But... Anyways. Cool. Well, I would give this...
What would you rate the movie? Oh, yeah.
4 stars. 4 out of 5 stars.
4 out of 5 stars.
I have to watch
I can only see
it.
one of your fingers.
What do you mean?
I can only see 2 of your fingers. I can only see 3 of your fingers. 4 of your fingers! There we go! 4 out of 5 stars.
I'm
like
chopped over here. 4, yeah. Oh, 3. 2. 4. Also 4 out of 5 stars. All right.
1 finger. 2 fingers. That's what I'm thinking of the count.
It is October.
Oh, the count. Love that guy.
Yeah. Cool. Well, if you've seen this movie, let us know how you liked it, if you liked it. And yeah. Monze, where can they find us?
You can find us at We Don't Watch Movies Pod on Instagram. You can find me on Instagram at Magic Monster.
Yep.
Corinne, what about you?
You can find me at Korean is Korean. That's a C, 1 R, and 2 N's.
I feel like one day I should spell my thing, but I'm probably never going to because it's too much brain effort.
Okay. All right. Thanks for listening.